Hey YouTube, today we'll be working on a Nintendo Game Boy. This is a DMG 01. Currently this one's reported to have no power, and it's actually on right now, and if I move the bag you can see that there's actually doesn't want to turn on. So we'll be working on restoring this Game Boy back. For the most part it tends to be the contacts, and I'm pretty sure that's what the case is. Once I put in the batteries I did notice that there was a bit of corrosion in those areas. So we'll be working on trying to restore that. If you have issues with your terminals, maybe this will work for you. So let's go ahead and try to give it a good clean and see if we can get this back to a working state. So you see here, it's actually corroded. You can see some of that corrosion right there in that third one. There's a little bit of corrosion on this side as well, but some of the issues may be inside, so we're gonna have to go ahead and open it. And normally you would need a tri-wing screwdriver for this, but I did notice that it looks like someone had already tried to attempt to open it, or maybe these are some of the screws that it comes with. But I noticed that this one is using a Phillips just to open the case, but normally you would need a tri-wing screwdriver for these DMGs. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this open. Alright, now that we have all the screws removed, we're going to want to remove the bottom from the top housing, but you're going to want to pull this gently. There is a ribbon cable that's attaching the front housing to the back housing, so if you pull too hard you risk causing damage to that, so just be careful. So let's go ahead, and you can see here there's that ribbon cable. Alright, so this is looking pretty dirty here. I don't know if this is causing any damage currently, but if it is, if just cleaning the terminals does not do the trick, we're gonna have to go ahead and inspect some of these other things. Just from like a very basic form of troubleshooting, we just want to clean the terminals contacts and see if that's enough to just bring this Game Boy back to life. So let's go ahead and get that. Alright, so I'm gonna start with the bottom contacts here. There's really an easy way. I just use like a dentist pick to get down there and kind of push and slide it outwards. It makes it easy. That's really how you just remove these contacts, and then there's a middle one right here. So let me see if I can zoom in. Maybe this may help. So there you go, you can see this one right here. So at the very bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but it's actually just holding onto it right here. So really all you want to do is just push it and then try to push it downward at the same time, and you should get these out on the other side pretty easily. Alright, so you can see we got this one off, and we should also have this one off. Alright, we're gonna get this last one up here. It's gonna be the same thing. I'm gonna turn it around. Alright, so the other two contacts that are missing, these are actually soldered on, but I'm not going to go ahead and desolder that. I think I'm just going to go ahead and clean it with some 99% IPA, that's isopropyl alcohol, and in doing so it should remove a lot of that corrosion. And if we still have some issues, then we're going to go ahead and have to desolder that and try to see if we can clean it up really well. Maybe it's just a poor contact, but we're going to do that as a last step resort. So let's first just clean these other ones up and clean these as well and see if that is able to restore back our Game Boy. We're gonna get started by using this brush real quick. This is just gonna help get rid of some of that corrosion. I can provide a link on Amazon below to see where you can get this. If not, you're gonna have to find some other brush that can kind of scrub through and get some of this contacts cleaned up. So let's get started. this one might be a little bit more difficult to restore. You can see that there's quite a bit of damage. We're gonna go ahead and try it anyway. If not, we have some other extra ones from a different broken Game Boy that I can use. I'm gonna go ahead and try to restore this anyway, like this, just to kind of show how we can restore it. But chances are I'm not gonna use this on the final product. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this because this is pretty damaged, and you might run into some more issues down the road. Looks like there still seems to be quite a bit of corrosion back here. I might have to dunk these in some rust remover that I have, just to kind of help out. It just normally takes a couple of hours so that the solution can settle in there. But I think that's something I'm probably gonna have to do just to kind of get some of that stuff out of there that's deep within the recesses of this terminal. And let's check this last one here. So this one's not too bad. Alright, so it looks like someone decided to mow the lawn while I was recording, which is not a big deal because the next step, and I apologize for the noise, I'm going to go ahead and leave these in some rust remover. And the rust remover that I use is this one called Evaporust. The reason I use it is because it's reusable and non-toxic, and so it's pretty neat in that sense. So what I end up doing is I have it in this little jar, and I tend to put some of the screws in here when they're pretty rusted, and while I'm cleaning some of the stuff I leave them in the solution for a couple of hours. Normally it's anywhere between 1 to 12 hours, and then I come back and I go ahead and try to remove some of that extra grime. So I'm going to do that with these contacts just because there are some things that are like right here in the back, it's really stuck in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that while they cut the lawn. It's not that big of a deal, like I mentioned, but it'll give us a good time to go ahead and leave these soaking in the solution. And I'll be back in a couple of hours and see what comes off. Alright, I'm back, everyone. And so far I left the solution sitting there for about 10 hours. You can see all that just kind of coming out. So let's go ahead and see how it looks. Alright, so you can see it just got rid of some of that stuff. Looks probably like I need to switch it out now, but let's go ahead and put this aside, take a look at what we got. Alright, so let's see how these turned out. Let's see this one. It looks okay. We're just gonna brush it off right now in a little bit, but let's take a look at the one that was really bad. Alright, you can see here it actually cleaned up quite a bit, and we can actually get in there with that brush and clean that off. And this other one, it's not too bad. Looks pretty clean. You can see that it's actually touching now, right here. I don't know if this stuff comes off. Looks like it would. All right, I'm gonna hit this one with a stronger brush and see if we can get that off. That looks pretty decent. Let's move on to the next one. So now we got this one here. Actually, I think it's okay to use this brush also just to kind of get rid of some of that stuff. Now it looks like it's spreading, but it's not really doing that. I'm just cleaning it off. I gotta actually rinse it and
come right off after that.
This one looks pretty good too once we clean it off. So let's move on to the next one. So you can actually see a lot of that stuff that stayed in the back. Let's see if we can get it off. That looks a lot better. The only thing that's required is that we actually rinse this in water and we just let it dry, that way it doesn't corrode once again. But I'm gonna go ahead and brush this one more time. And I'm gonna go ahead and clean my mat because it looks really dirty. I don't wanna leave any of that on there. And then I'm gonna change my gloves, but in the meantime, let me go ahead and rinse this and I'll be right back with the results. All right, I'm back once again. I finally got these cleaned up. I rinsed them and gave them a brush at the same time. And you can see they look way better than they did before. This is, I don't know which one the worst one was. I think it was between one of these two. You can see the back is pretty corroded, but nonetheless, it looks pretty good. What we're gonna do is try to see if we get continuity. So I'm gonna just use my multimeter. So here, I'm gonna check for continuity. This is that little sound sign right here, you can see. I have it up here. So this is just checking for if there is continuity. So here we get it. And one of the easiest things to do is just simply touch one of these springs right here and then make sure you get signal on the other one. So we get that. That means that we're getting continuity, so that way when we connect the batteries, everything's gonna work the way it should be. So that one looks pretty good. This one seems to be working, and this one too. Okay, so that's one quick way to test if you're actually getting continuity. So let's go ahead and put these back. And the order does matter. I mean, let's take a look. I think they have like a W, yeah. So up here, I don't know, you can see it says like W2 right there on top. And the other ones will say something like W1. All right, so when we put this in, it has the spring facing that way, so you can even match it. So on the spring, it's gonna be on the negative, and the side with the little dome sticking out, that's gonna go on the positive. So we just slide that back in, and you have to make sure the notch is sticking out this way. So we can slide it in, it should click. And this one's not clicking. This one might just be that this thing here is not poking out as much as it should. So there we go. I'm gonna push it out that way, it can just kind of latch on. There we go. I heard the click. Looks good. Now we're gonna do the same for the other one. This is another W2. So let's go ahead and slide that one in as well. Okay, this one's also having issues, so I'm just gonna push this one out right here. So I'm just pushing this out a little bit. There we go. Okay, we heard the snap on that one. So these two are good. And the last one, we'll just go ahead and push this one out as well. May have gotten bent a little bit when we were brushing. So this last one is gonna be the one in the middle. It's gonna go this way. All right, so all of them are in. All right, let's go ahead and put the batteries back and see if this will power on this time. Hopefully it does. We'll mess with it a little bit otherwise. So there we go, look at that. But unfortunately for us, it looks like it has another issue, and that's these vertical lines. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get that taken care of. I'm going to speed up the process. I will show you. I have a previous video that I created. I'll go ahead and still just kind of go through the motions real quickly, but I'll fast forward and show you just kind of how to get this done. All right, so we want to make sure that we still have the ribbon cable connected and the batteries inside. The reason for this is that we're going to be wanting to test as we solder pretty much the contacts of a ribbon cable that's located behind for the screen. And I'll go ahead and show that, but it makes it easier so that when you're actually working and trying to solve the issue, it helps you see when the lines are actually being restored. So that's the reason why we want to keep the ribbon cable and the batteries intact. So let's go ahead and get started on that. All right, so let's get started by removing this board from this housing. This is the side with the screen on it. It's really just held down by a couple of screws, and they're denoted with a circle around it. You can see it here. We'll go ahead and remove those. You really just need a Phillips screwdriver, so it's pretty simple to take off. That way we can expose and see that ribbon cable that we're gonna fix for the screen. Once all the screws have been removed from the board, we're just gonna simply lift this up, and this should come right off from the other housing from the screen. So we'll go ahead and put this to the side. Okay, so in order to get this repair done, there are a few things that are required. You're gonna need a soldering iron. Ideally, it's just to reach a temperature of 550 degrees Fahrenheit. And what we're gonna end up doing is solder the contacts right here along the screen. You're probably gonna also need something to just gently lift this rubber strip, and we're gonna put this back on. Maybe some super glue so that we can place it back, as I don't have any adhesive, but it seems to be okay for me to just put a little bit of super glue to put it back on. And ideally that's it. So I will show you. So you're gonna want to start with something thin enough to not damage this rubber strip. So here, we're just gonna remove this. Okay, once it's gone, simply set it aside. And then here, I like to remove this little layer of adhesive. The reason for this is because when we touch it with a soldering iron, it's going to burn it anyway. It's not going to damage the board, but I mean, it's not really used anymore. So I mean, at this point, I just kind of remove it just so it's easier for me to work with. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. There we go. So that's just trash. And then the next thing is we're going to want to get our soldering iron. So let me go ahead and warm that up to 550 degrees Fahrenheit. So while that's warming up, one of the things you want to do is make sure that the tip is clean. That way you don't have any residual solder. You don't want that to be on top of this ribbon. Now this ribbon is fairly durable, so don't worry too much about damaging it. Just make sure that you don't leave the tip on here too long, and you should be okay when resoldering this tip. So for this one, I just use a chisel tip so you can see it. Honestly, anything works as long as you're just applying some of that pressure. So I'm gonna go ahead and just clean it. We already got our soldering iron to 550 degrees, and you're gonna want to turn it on as we want to see the lines that we're trying to repair. So here we're going to start with this side, since this is the only side that's damaged. So let me go ahead and make it darker so it's easier to see the lines. Alright, so for this next piece, I'm just going to go ahead and put some super glue here on this end and on this end, and honestly I'm just going to use some piece of solder wire. That way I can just go ahead and cut it and then throw it away. I use toothpicks in other cases, but I'll just show you what I do. So I just use super glue here, and I'll put just a little bit. So you can see there, it's just a little drop. It's nothing crazy. And then I simply just go ahead and get a little bit here and then apply it to the ends. And that's it. It's back on. Alright, so I think that wraps up this video. So we were able to restore this Game Boy back to working condition. I am going to go ahead and clean this Game Boy off camera. I just wanted to go ahead and show the repair guide on some of these things. So if people had questions regarding like the terminals, how to clean them, or the screen, how to fix it, this is one way to do it. So I did show you that we use a rust remover, and then I also did show that how we fix these vertical lines. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this Game Boy off camera, but for now this is where I wrap the video. If you guys like this video, please be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, as I will be releasing more videos in the upcoming weeks. I do have a bunch of handhelds that I did mention in my previous video, and this is a series that I will try to go ahead and clean and restore 47 of the consoles, and so far we're on number 2. If there is a certain handheld that you want me to repair, please be sure to leave a comment below. That way I can go ahead and start creating videos on those if they pique your interest. But other than that, this wraps up this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Catch you guys next time.